what we shouldn't be doing is thinking about what we're going to say next. But that's the human nature thing to do in conversation.
Now this is the interesting thing. When we're listening, there's different levels of listening. So we're listening, but actually we're just paying attention to the stuff that we're ruminating on in our own head. The next thing is we're listening, but actually we're too busy then trying to get our next sentence in. And then the real listening is when we're really paying attention and none of that stuff's in our head and it's all about what that other person is saying. And that's super, super key. So, Tim, you will notice that, and people might notice that we've had to cut the video, because if you were listening, you'll see that I've taken my body warmer off because I've just had a hot flush.
Okay.
So if you were paying attention, you would have noticed I'd have gone from red from here all the way.
Okay. Does this happen often?
It's one of those things. It's called life, Tim. Yeah, it's called life.
But eventually it stops, doesn't it?
Yeah. It'll stop. Yeah, it'll stop.
But
anyway, there you go. That's called active listening. It's not just about my words. It's about the person's body language, their skin color, tonality in their skin, their pitch of their voice as well. And it could be that, you were talking about the lady that stuff was going on and she was a bit, could have been perceived being dramatic, kind of going into the supervision. It's not just what people say. It could be the way that they're sitting in the chair and us actually taking the time to tune in and pay attention to that, because I think it's really key. Certainly when you're doing or you're kind of carrying out this supervision kind of process. And this is why it's important it isn't just a tick box exercise, because I think you can glean a lot more information that's useful, other than just they're there and I've told them about A, B, C, D, and E, and I've gone online and I've checked when they've got their next lot of mandatory training and I've ticked more boxes. It's actually a process that the person should be getting something out of.
Should be constructive, it should be uplifting, it should be developmental.
Completely.
It's quite interesting. When you wanted me to listen just then, you went a bit kinesthetic.
Did I start talking about feelings?
You started talking quite slowly and a bit quieter. But maybe that was just you trying to calm down from the hot flush.
Possibly. But also, I'm very used to using the pitch and the tone of my voice, and using it to kind of inflict meaning into the sentence so as to kind of get the outcome that I want. So are you going to do your homework now or after your tea? Tell the difference, can't you? And you can use your voice to convey all sorts of things, which is something we really need to be mindful of when we're carrying out supervision. Because if we're super grumpy, it'll come across and it'll impact that person's experience.
I was so scared then. I was wondering what homework I haven't done.
That's not really my scary face, Tim.
That was nice scary face, wasn't it?
Yeah. It can be nice sometimes.
I think as well with supervisions, it goes in thirds.
Okay.
So I think the middle third is the time you spend talking with the person. The first third is the time you spend planning it, where you think about their last session, what training, but also you think about them and how you can structure it and which tools and techniques you're going to use at different times. And I used to like to plan on the silly form. So I would fill the silly form with bullet points and numbers as well, which bit I was going to do when. And what's the third? Planning, conducting, what's the last bit?
Probably feedback, things to do afterwards. The
Follow-up.
stuff.
The thing is, though, most people only do the middle third.
Yeah, they do. And how many people actually get out the previous supervision and look at it? So say for me, if I've got a next session with a coaching client, I have to get my notes out and go through what we talked about before. And I have to think, well, actually, what do I need to do in this session? What do I think is going to come up in this session? Because otherwise, I'm going to be rifling around behind me, trying to find the folder in it with the technique and the script and the this and that and the other. So I actually have to invest that time into the process. It's not just somebody turns up and we have a conversation.
Imagine if you got the clients mixed up.
How do I not get them mixed up?
Imagine if you did.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I know, but it'd be funny, wouldn't it?
No,
It would at the time.
no. No, I'm trying to give you my Lucy Stern face and I can't do it because you're making me laugh.
It would be, you got to do that on April Fool's Day. Talk to a client about something totally random. But
Well,
plausible.
you see, that wouldn't work
Wouldn't
because
it?
I talk to my clients about random stuff all
That's
the
normal.
time.
Yeah.
So it just wouldn't work, Tim. And you know I'm really random. So you know what, me pulling something random out really wouldn't work. I mean, if I can connect you wittering on, I mean, I'm sure I could connect your trees to supervision somehow.
I haven't got any trees anymore.
No, but the historical ones, those that are a distant memory or a memory that's getting even more distant. I'd
I
even connect it to health and safety and mental capacity if I need to.
I do have a piece of the tree in the office with me.
Do you?
I do.
Oh, look at that.
I know.
Oh.
All that's left.
You know what? For those of you that do not know what we're talking about, you're going to have to go right back to the beginning and rewatch the first couple of episodes where we talk about Tim and his trees. So come on, Tim, right? Never mind these trees because these trees needed cutting. I've got a connection here, right? So I've got trees in the garden, and these trees every couple of years need pollarding because that's the type of tree that they are. And it's quite rigid. We do it in the winter months when the tree is sleeping and the sap is low in the tree. Now, it's a routine, it's a pattern. Now, these supervisions, how often do you do your supervisions?
Well, I had this conversation with a client last week. And last Friday, actually. Now, because they're in Wales, the legislation says they must have a supervision at least once every 3 months. But this organisation had decided to write it into their procedures, it would be every 6 to 8 weeks. Which I termed foolish.
Because then they have to achieve it.
Well, they didn't achieve it, did they? No, so they've decided to exceed the legal requirement, but we've also got a regulation for the care sector in Wales that says you must follow your policies and procedures.
Oh.
So regulation 12 actually says you must actually have some policies and procedures and you must follow them, which is quite sensible, isn't it? So they wrote it in the tablets of stone every 6 to 8 weeks and then didn't do it. So they've now breached their own procedures and breached the regulations, which is called breaking the law. Hence, that's why I told them they were foolish, which went down incredibly
that's fair enough.
It went down incredibly well.
I should think so. If you said foolish, I think that's quite a gentle bit of feedback. I also think that they would be potentially very grateful.
So I suggested that they put, we will do supervisions at least once every 3 months. However, we will aim to do them more frequently at the suggested interval every 6 to 8 weeks. However, this may be even more frequent, depends on the needs of the individual.
But some people really need supervisions. They get a lot out of them. It could be that they need a lot of supervisions, but then there are other people who fundamentally the supervision just doesn't do anything for them.
No. Do you know,
I'm one of those people.
I've only once ever had a supervision. Once, one occasion ever. And it was in the last century. And it must have been in about 1996. And that was it. And it lasted about 20 minutes. And I stayed working for that organization for another 4 years, but I just never used to bother going to them.
Yeah. You know what? For me, a supervision's got to be really productive, and I've got to get something out of it. So if it's not really productive and I don't get anything out of it, then it's just a waste of my time. And because I can work out what I need and what I want, and if I've got a question, I'm going to go and ask it. But not everybody's like me, and some people do need that sort of thing. And it's about understanding what people need and what they want and what works for them. And you might have some people who just don't want them whatsoever, but actually need lots of them.
I think we need to give some advice now, or some tips. So why don't we each give our listener, our viewer, 3 tips for conducting awesome reviews, supervisions, developmental conversations, whatever they're called. So shall I go first? So give you time to think, or do you want to go first?
I've got mine.
Go on then, off you go.
Mine will be very different to yours.
So tell you what, you do one of yours, then I'll do one of mine, and we'll take it in turns.
Okay. So
go on then.
The key is to build rapport.
Is that it?
What on earth is that? Yes, to build rapport.
I know what rapport is.
Build rapport. You do not want to be sitting down to have a supervision if you haven't got rapport and it's a little bit frosty and it's a bit uncomfortable.
Very true. My first tip is never be boring.
I think that's fabulous. Okay.
Next.
This is a bit random. Sit at a 90-degree positioning to the person and let that person sit down first. Build rapport.
Would you do the
communication?
Would you do the breathing thing and the mirroring thing as well?
I would, but that's because I'm trained to do it.
So you would actually do the breathing and the mirroring thing?
Yeah, but I do it unconsciously now.
So if their posture was bad and like slumped and like they can't be asked, would you adopt the same posture?
It would depend on the outcome I wanted to achieve. But obviously, people might not know what we're talking about, and this might be teaching people bad habits. But because I'm trained to do this, I absolutely can mirror and match people. So come on, number 2 for you, please.
It would be make it absolutely person-centered to the person you're going to be talking with. Treat them as an absolute individual.
Fabulous. My third one is remove all distractions. So that means the telephone, the email, and distractions in your own head. Because
I like that.
Fundamentally, you need to be level 3 listening to this person, and that is a paying attention to everything that's going on.
My third tip, which I think is the most important, you've got to want to do it.
More important than my 3 tips, Tim?
Of mine. Better.
Good.
Best one of mine. You've got to want to do it. You've got to see the value. If it's a tick boxy exercise, it's going to be crap.
Also,
you have it. A 4th one.
No. Well, we could do, but my point was, talk about your 3rd one for a minute. if you're going into it and you don't want to do it and you're just not in the right frame of mind, do you know what? You're going to give across something that the other person's going to misinterpret potentially. And, it's just going to end up being a car crash, isn't it?
I wonder if at the time that we're recording this, or at the time that somebody's watching this, I wonder if somebody's having a supervision session with their line manager. Must be, mustn't they?
Oh, yeah, it's bound to be.
And I hope that that person is having a positive experience.
Yeah.
But I also hope that the people that have listened to us being silly for the last half hour, I hope that we made them think. And I hope that they're going to take some of the tips that we've shared and listen to our stories and reflected on how they do supervisions and how people do supervisions on them.
And I think it's a do with process, not a do to process.
What? Can I have another tip?
Go on then.
Don't do surprise supervisions.
Oh, no.
Ah, Lucy, nice to see you. Let's do your supervision today.
But I back that up with, when you book in the supervision, ensure it's convenient and actually pre-frame whether there's something that needs to be discussed, because we do know supervisions are used for a purpose of discussing set topics, because the person might really worry about having to come in to have a supervision.
How about this scenario?
Go on then.
Hey, Lucy, you've worked a 12-hour shift overnight. You finish at 8 o'clock, and I know you've got to go to get your kids to school, but we'd like you to stay an hour later to have your supervision session. That just doesn't work, does it?
No, I'd come back and go, for what purpose do I need a supervision?
Because I've got a box on my supervision matrix that isn't ticked. And you're going to say, well, tick the damn box then.
I'll say, well, your box can remain unticked because I'm not stopping. I'm going home.
And if you did stop, you're going to be wanting to get away quickly as possible. You're going to be knackered. You're going to be resentful. And it's going to be crap.
Absolutely. So, Tim, how might you request that supervision in a positive way that is going to get you the outcome that you want?
Am I the supervisor or the supervisee?
You can be the supervisor.
So I've got to get this person who's done a 12-hour shift. I would go to them during their 12-hour shift and say, we need to plan supervision sessions with you. You work 12-hour shifts. What is the best way we can do that with you? So I would ask them. I'd say, options. You can come in early. You can stay at the end of the shift. You can come on a different day. Or better still, why don't I come to work at midnight when you're on shift? But if we do it that way, possible you might get interrupted. But it's not easy, is it? But I would ask them which is best for them, because that's what I think making it person-centered is. And they might just say, do you know what? I can come in at 7 instead of 8. And we'll do it then. Or they might just say, well, if I've got enough notice, I can stay on for an hour. I can have childcare.
And they might just turn around and say, well, I'm free now. Is that convenient?
I would probably say no, because I wouldn't have planned.
Oh, you wouldn't have planned to see. So that's very good, but you've got to be prepared for that response that they might.
I would explain that I wouldn't just do it off the cuff, because I do need time to plan to get maximum value out of it for both of us.
Very good.
And even though I can plan one of these conversations in 3 minutes, I could never plan someone's supervision in 3 minutes.
And I think that's really key, isn't it? Because it's got to provide value.
It has.
And
return on investment.
Yeah, and I think what people don't always realize is that the quality and related to the context of supervisions can be looked at and given feedback on by people coming in and inspecting your service.
I think we should wrap this up, don't you?
I think so too.
So we've talked about supervisions, we've talked about trees, we've talked about bananas, we've talked
Hot flushes.
about hot flushes. I wasn't going to say that, but as soon as you brought it up, we've talked
No,
about.
it's important because what have we got? 80% of the population in social care are female.
Okay.
So hot flushes is important to talk about.
Would you talk about hot flushes during the supervision session?
Yeah, absolutely, I would.
Okay.
Purely because if my menopause was causing me a problem in my workplace, I think it would be really important that my manager understood and that they could make reasonable adjustments. It might be that I might have to wear a different uniform with a different fabric. It might be. So I don't just have hot flushes, I have cold flushes. So it might be that I have to have a jacket to hand because I'm absolutely freezing. And I absolutely genuinely think, so maybe, Tim, we could one week get a guest speaker in to talk to us
About menopause.
about menopause.
Why
Yeah,
don't we do that?
I think that would be really
Because
cool.
I've got loads of questions about menopause.
I absolutely think that would be really cool.
Because I've experienced the menopause from the husband side of the fence with 2 wives. And I think I got away quite lightly.
I absolutely think, and I've got a lady in mind.
Okay. So, thank you for watching, listening. We hope we made you think. We hope we've been informative. And Lucy, would you like to say anything now?
I need to go and get the chicken out the oven.
Perfect. What an ending.